Okay, some folks in the GG Pub Discord have said that tips and tricks video would be useful. So I'm putting together this is a short one I put together. Mostly stuff that I've learned from other people. Toby One Shinobi is a second degree black belt run video that I found useful, and then there's a few other folks from his community that have videos. I will drop those in the description so you can go look at those as well. All right, so we'll start with flick shots. I'll switch over to the hand cam here for a second. But one of the things that kind of helps me with the flick shots is moving with the bots. When you move the same direction as the bot, you're actually effectively slowing down their speed, which makes it easier to kind of track. The other thing that I like to do is I actually focus my eyes and my, where I'm looking on the bots. I don't usually look at my reticle or my crosshairs. I look at the bots. And then, my body, my hand, my brain naturally brings me to the target. If you kind of focus on the reticle, I feel like you're not really getting enough information about where the bots are. And that, that may be maybe different for everybody, but for me, focusing on the bots and not on the crosshairs is where I get the most success. The other thing I'll say is that I feel like this spot right here is usually kind of the best spot, and some people just like to sit stationary, which is fine. Like, you can probably just go like set up right around here, and then if you want to do that, you can do that. That's fine. I actually have a harder time not moving, but if some people don't like to move, or that can be a little bit jarring. But as you can see, for me, my timing is actually not as good. I guess once I get it locked in here, it's fine. And you can hit everything just standing right here. And you can still move your crosshair to try and like slow down the speed. But yeah, so you could try moving or standing, see which one works better for you. I like moving personally. The other thing I like about moving is that if you notice, a new bot ejects, right after you kill one. So the faster you kill, the more bots you get. So if you can kill them faster, you get more bots, which means you get more opportunities to score points. So the other thing that I'll say is that after you shoot, always go back to center. Have a center point where your reticle always returns to. And then that's going to help you because you'll be starting from a common spot. So it's like you kind of like shoot, get back to center, 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 shoot, get back to center. And other than that, it's really just practice. One thing as a mouse player, one thing that has really helped me is actually moving my finger, and this is in general, like not just for this map, but gameplay in general, moving my finger higher up on the mouse, because at least for my mouse, my reaction time to the click is way faster the higher up I am on the button. If I'm down here, it actually takes a lot longer for me to click. And so that, that makes it a lot easier. And I can just click way faster, especially for tap firing. I can tap fire way faster up high on the mouse versus down here on the mouse. This way I can just like really hammer the tap fires. Smooth tracking. This one, I think, it's useful to try a few different guns. Obviously, this one is just all about time to kill and headshots. I really like the combat rifle for this one because it has a fast fire rate. And again, you want to like focus on smooth tracking. And so for mouse, that's really like a relaxed arm motion, almost kind of like you're drawing a line, and you're drawing a line the same speed as the target. And and you don't want to be tense, because when you tense up, it makes it really hard to aim. And so you just want to track things really, really smooth. And imagine, like, if you've ever done contour drawing where you draw something on a piece of paper without looking at the paper, you're just looking at the object and imagining your hand going around the outside of the object you're drawing. That's kind of what I try to visualize when I'm or try to do when I'm aiming in this scenario is I just want to draw a smooth line, and you want to move at the same speed as the target. Also, over time, you will start to learn where the bots spawn relative to where you killed them. I think it's also important to note that this is a loop, and that may not be obvious at first, but like you're basically going in this loop and it's going to repeat around. So they're always going to be moving left to right on the back up here, and then right to left once they get to this building. And so just being able to keep that in mind, you're going to be going like this. The other thing that is often pretty useful is not just aiming with your mouse or your reticle, but also using your body to move with the targets, especially when they're moving in a straight line, because that actually reduces the amount that I have to move my mouse if I'm also moving my body as well. And so oftentimes I will move as I'm shooting, not just moving, not staying stationary and shooting the target, but moving myself with the target. So that's another thing you can try there. Okay, so for slide and shoot, this one is really, I think, about lining up your reticle ahead of time, right? You want to reduce, you don't want to be aiming when you're sliding through. You want to be click timing. And like basically, you want to keep your reticle, like line it up ahead of time. And you want to, and this is also useful like in game too, where it's like if you're going to slide in on somebody or, try to pump somebody around the corner, you kind of want to pre-line up your reticle before you're going to shoot them, or if you're shocking onto somebody, and you want to have that lined up ahead of time so that you're not trying to aim while you're sliding. You're just kind of doing one thing at a time. Keep the reticle lined up, boom, 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 just like that. And so that's a big one. I mean, there are ways to speed run this where you can do there's people that get up to 60 on this, speed running it, where they basically slide through the whole thing. That's a little bit outside of my capability right now, but you can definitely do that. All right, so Shockwave Defense. This one, I suggest finding a gun that you like and experimenting in some practice scenarios. This one's going to be about smooth tracking, where you want to get shots, there's a couple of things. One, you want to get shots early so that you can be sure that you get enough damage on them. And so you want to try to start tracking them, acquire the target as soon as you can, and then smoothly follow it down. This is, again, just smooth. It's all about being smooth, not necessarily fast, but smooth. And this is another one where the sooner you kill them, the sooner you get a new one. So if you're trying to really go for max, you want to try to get on them as soon as possible. I'm kind of late on these, but if I was really optimizing for maximum number of bots, you want to get them on the way up, and then hopefully they're dead before they even start coming down. And this one, you should try to experiment with hip firing and ADSing. For example, with the hammer, I actually kind of like to hip fire. I feel like it's actually easier to track them. Well, hollow is a bit harder, I think, because the ADS time. But so try the different guns. I like the Veiled SMG the best for this one, but obviously, it's not a gun that's currently in season. So if you're doing this for practice, for the current season, maybe you run through the scenario with those guns so you can adjust your aim for those guns. But if you're, kind of trying to really just increase your performance on the scenario and on the course, you see, I really like that Veiled SMG because I feel like it's one of the easier guns to track with, but, I'll just come in and run this scenario with newer guns just to practice for the season, but if I'm running for a max score, I'm going to use the Veiled SMG. All right, so for combat flow, my biggest tip is focus on these two platforms and those flickshot bots that come out. And then next, focus on these guys. You can headshot them with one shot with a mammoth, or you can do a mammoth pump on them. There's that guy up there. I don't really worry about him too much unless I'm it's opportunistic. If I'm in the right position, I see him flying, and I know that I can that I can try to get a shot off on them, then I will, but I primarily go focus on these two guys, like that guy that just landed, then these guys, and then if they're not there, then I go to this guy right here. Oh, but then I'll switch back to the shotgun bot, because those are going to be the easiest to hit, and they're just kind of like guaranteed points. And then I'll go back to this guy. Then I'll focus on this chick, which is a little bit harder to hit. And I like see this guy coming through. All right, I'll get him. And don't be afraid to, like, you don't have to use the mammoth for everything. You know, you can definitely SMG these guys. Same thing with these guys, so you can SMG them. It just takes a little bit longer. You know, if you're just trying to improve if you're starting off at the beginning, just focus on trying to get as much damage output as possible, and then over time, you can kind of like refine your technique, you know, to figure out, like, you know, where if you're working on your mammoth aim, getting that better, then you can do that over time. But really just kind of focus on damage output. You can even hit that guy with the shotgun, but you just want to be constantly kind of outputting damage to whichever bots you can. And then as you get better, you can kind of start optimizing for quicker kills. And so, you know, I think like this one can be hard to get, you know, like it can be hard to break the 30 barrier on this one. But with a little bit of practice, you start to get a rhythm. You start to come up with a strategy, and, you know, it's all about kind of doing that. I think like my max on this one, I think, is 40. But again, there's like people that I think get up to 60 on this one. But, you know, I'm definitely not that cracked at it. So just kind of prioritize these guys. That's the biggest starter tip, is prioritizing quick bots, and then kind of working on these guys when they're there, and then working on this guy, then working on the lane in the background, and then opportunistically kind of trying to get that guy up there. Uneven 1v1. This one is all about damage output and trying to get headshots. So like when the guy spawns, if he's standing still, I'll often just ADS to try and get a big pump on him. So like right now, boom, 185. That's a quick kill. You know, they're not always going to be standing still, but you want to try to get, you know, you want to try to get a really good opening headshot on this guy, and then, you know, you can kill him a lot quicker. Ideally, if you get a great headshot, you know, you can kill this guy in like just a couple of seconds. That's not a good example of it. So like ideally, like the guy spawns and he's standing still, boom, you know, that's like boom. But they're not all going to do that. They're going to move around quite a bit. And so, you know, you're going to have some that are harder to kill. They're a little bit more zippy, but if they're standing still, get that headshot and then finish up with the SMG and then a third pump if you need to. And sometimes they go hiding on you, which is annoying, but boom, 162. Not as fast as I would like, but still pretty good. Missed the headshot on that one. Headshot pump. You know, you really just kind of want to get your damage output as high as possible, and so go for headshots if you can, and then make sure that you fill in between the pumps with the SMG. So dash defense, this one, honestly, I kind of suck at. So my strategy with this one is that if they're close, I try to hip fire them with the mammoth, and then if they're far, I try to ADS. But I'd say the big thing for this one, you can also try using the shotgun. I generally don't use the shotgun, but, you know, you could use the shotgun as well. If they're really close, I may shotgun them, but like from that distance, you just don't do much damage. So I will say that, like, the other tip I have here is, you know, if you're gonna, when they're farther and you're trying to ADS on them, you don't want to ADS and move. Typically, your targeting speed is going to be way slower when you're ADS. So what you want to do is you want to try to acquire the target when you're not ADS'd, and then kind of, at least what I do, and then try to ADS to get the accuracy. So if the guy's moving around, I'm gonna, you know, basically move to him and then ADS instead of constantly moving ADS. That's really the biggest tip. And I'd say in this one, like, again, don't be afraid to hip fire when they're close, because and again, similar to like the flick shots, try to, like, you can move sometimes in the direction they're going to slow them down, or to make it, you know, to make it slower. The effective tracking is slower because you're moving in the same direction as them. And you see, like, those two, I just got those on hip fires. I didn't have to ADS because I was able to kind of track them with the hip fire and make sure that the reticle was full. And I'd say that's another probably big thing that I would try to focus on is when you're, especially with these hip fire shots, you want to try to make sure that your reticle is as full of the target as possible to increase the chance that you hit them. And versus trying to versus trying to aim at a specific point, like try to think about like, is the reticle full of the target? If it is, then you're probably going to hit it. If it's not, then you can see like it can be hard to hit these guys. Even when you have, there's a good chunk of them that's in the reticle. At this distance, you probably want to ADS. Like when you're close up, if you can get to a point where the reticle is full, then, and there's, it's just fully consumed by the hitbox, gonna be pretty much guaranteed shots. Okay, so for speed peaks, this one is kind of all about right hand peak. And so as you can see, like there's certain angles where the bot can shoot me and certain angles where he can't. Right here he can't shoot me, but I can shoot him. And then kind of same thing over here. If I move out, boom, but there's, an angle where I can get a shot in him and he can't get a shot at me. In terms of actually trying to get a high score in this or, improve your score, you really need to just be able to kind of cruise through and get those shots. And so I feel like this course is good for practicing and understanding peaks, but then also working on timing your shots when you're approaching an enemy. You know that they're around the peak. You want to just come out and kill them, right? Whoops, messed up that one. There's the peak aspect of it, and then there's also just being able to time your shot with the peak where, you want to be able to just like, it's almost like a pre-fire, if you're familiar with that concept, where you're kind of like moving through and you want to shoot them, move through, shoot them. That was a left-hand peek, which, you often don't want to do, but if you're trying to get a high score, you kind of want to do that so you can kill that guy faster. And so really then what it comes down to is just kind of going through, getting the timing of this as much as you can. That was terrible. And you can shoot these guys from pretty far away safely. And then just kind of go through and, work on that. And then pretty soon you'll just be able to like run through this whole course. Getting those peaks very quickly. Okay, so for shock attack, a couple things I think worth noting. If you don't know how to shock straight up, then you want to be able to work on that. And so you want to be able to shock straight up. I think it's the easiest way to attack these guys. There may be better ways. And so then once you understand kind of how to shock straight up, if you didn't know how to do that, then you kind of want to line yourself up with the footprints of your target. So that way it's actually easier to track your mammoth shot and your SMG shot to them. And so that's kind of what I'm doing, is like looking for the footprints, trying to line myself up with the footprints so that I will hopefully not have far to travel to shoot them, and then shocking straight up and trying to get the mammoth shot first and then quickly switching to the SMG to do more damage. Some people like to do this with just the mammoth, which is totally a valid advantage. And then if you're looking for like tips to actually go faster, one thing you can do if you want to kind of speed it up a bit is that you can actually shock up onto the platform, and if you land on the platform, you respawn down to the bottom faster. I don't typically do that because it kind of messes with my aim, but that is a valid strategy there to basically kind of, shock up onto the platform. The other thing I'll say about this is that when you shock up, try to keep your movement as little as possible. Like, so for keyboard mouse, let me go back in here real quick. For keyboard mouse, as an example, when I do this, I'm trying to avoid using my WASD keys, and just because that makes aiming way harder, and just use my mouse. So I'm gonna go, try to line up the footprints here, shock up, no WASD, and just focus on hitting the shot. So here, I'll switch to side cam here and kind of, see, like, I'm basically going to throw down the shockwave, and, I'm moving my mouse a little bit, but I'm not really moving WASD at all. You see, just got that. Missed the mammoth shot, but got him with the SMG. And then got that guy with the mammoth. Way easier to aim if you reduce the amount of movement you have. And then, yeah, if you don't feel comfortable with the mammoth yet, you can just use the SMG. That's fine. It's totally fine. It kind of depends on where your score is at and what your goals are. If you're, if you're at a very, if you're at a lower single digit and you're trying to go up, maybe just using the SMG the entire time is going to get you significant progress. And then once you get more comfortable with that, you can start integrating mammoth. Okay, shockwave course, we'll start with the timers off so that I can take my time on it. You start at a good angle to jump up there. I think it's worth noting that there's a couple of different ways. So let's see here. I'm going to put a mark right here. That's one. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a sprint jump where I sprinted and jumped in front of the shockwave. That launched me 57 meters, roughly. So it's roughly 60, right? If I line back up here and I walk forward and jump without sprinting, I'm at 34 meters. And so you can use that, like to your advantage in learning this course by looking at the distances of where you need to go. Obviously, height comes into play too, which makes a difference. So like for this one, like from here, I should be able to just shock up and walk forward and jump. So it's shock, walk forward, center, basically when you place the shock, you want to walk forward, center yourself, and then jump. If I was farther back from here, I probably want to do the sprinting movement. So I'm going to sprint and then jump and then get up there. And then a lot of these, you can just do the forward walk and jump without sprinting. Most of them, I don't know if you actually need to sprint on any of them. So forward, jump. So it's like place the shock, walk forward, jump. Place the shock. This one I'm going to sprint because it was a little bit far. I actually don't know. We could try that one and see if we can do it without the sprint. Let's see here. So we're going to shockwave, walk forward. Okay, I didn't sprint that time. This one definitely don't need to sprint. And in fact, you might possibly be able to overshoot if you do. This one, walk forward, jump. Again, no sprint. Almost landed right on the coin. And then you want to get over to this platform. So from here for this platform, that's about 52 meters. And so usually, like for this one, what I'd probably do is try and line up right around 60, do the sprint jump, and oh, I missed it. Okay, and then from this one here, from right about here, again, walk forward, boom, land on the platform. And so for this one, I usually start a little bit farther back because if you're too close to the front, you can easily over jump that thing, and that is about 60 meters away, but you're up in the air above it, so you have elevation. So like from here, just walk, jump, and then you can also kind of like try to angle yourself as you're flying. If you feel like you're going to be overshooting it, kind of turn around and try to slow yourself down a bit. And then from here, this is just a straight jump across. And then you go onto the balloon, straight jump across. And then from here, the next platform, straight jump across. That almost missed that one. But as you do it, you kind of figure out like roughly where you need to jump from, and you kind of learn, the ideal spots to jump or the general area. You don't need to be precise. And then on these, you want to line up directly with the thing, go forward. And obviously you could tune that to be better so you could actually land on the coin and save yourself some time. Then come to this coin, and then again, you want to line yourself up. So I'm like almost perfectly lined up here, and then I want to shockwave, and then I want to jump. And it's just a walk jump again. This one is, you do need to get a little bit more momentum. This is a pretty big gap. So usually what I do is I start from here, I throw it, I run or sprint, and then jump, get across. And then we get the last coin. We've got all 18, and you're done. All right, movement course, last but not least. This one can be tricky. This is really about, learning efficient movement, timing of slide jumps and stuff. And so you pick this stuff up, get some slap going, go up the stairs. And then here is where I suggest you really kind of focus, especially in the beginning, on taking your time and really learning how to line yourself up with your jumps so that you can get onto these platforms, because if you fall off, it takes a lot of time to climb back up. And like once you're back up, then you gotta be able to climb up, and it can be tricky to get back on there. You can do it, you can just jump back up and turn, but that can be kind of a finicky movement. And then, you know, as you get better with that, you can start optimizing it. Like you can sprint jump between these two, but it's riskier. And then once you get to this endpoint, you can also sprint jump to like launch over those things, so you don't have to take as much time with the jumping and sliding. And then here, you know, making sure you're lined up so that you don't miss your mantle, knowing where these little barriers are that you need to slide under. This is a big one right here that can slow you down if you don't do that. And then as you go around the corner, you're going to see another barrier, and you want to do the same thing, slide underneath it. And then it's kind of about timing your slide jumps for, you know, the least amount of friction in your movement. Because, you know, if you don't time it right, then you end up kind of having to like go up these things. It slows you down a little bit, and all those little inefficiencies add time. This is not one that I'm super efficient at, but in this, you know, as you do it more and more, you become more efficient. Like that is actually like this right here is actually probably more efficient than doing the wall jump. If I could do the wall jump. But I just like doing the wall jump because I feel like the wall jump is less risky, and I don't, you know, I'm willing to eat the cost of that time. Let me do a wall jump up here. And so this part is very unforgiving. You have to do a series of sprint jumps and slides. I would actually suggest when you're starting off, like if you're having trouble, like do the sprint jump and don't worry about sliding through here because it's you might fall off the edge. Like make that an optimization you do later. Just focus on making the sprint jumps, right? So make the sprint jump, make the sprint jump, make the sprint jump. And then as you get better at it, you can just do those very quickly. Like if I go back here, we can go to the beginning and control. So if you want to do this, like try to do this a little faster, you know, you can get into your sprint, slide, whoop, oh, sprint, slide, almost fell off there. And then for this one, just jump up, catch that, slide, try to leave the zip line early, a little bit earlier, then that way you can get the umbrella. And then that one, you know, ideally you land on this. And again, like this is one where you take your time, because if you fall off, you got to climb back up to the center. So if you make it all the way to the end and you fall down, then you got to come back here. It takes a lot of time. But then, you know, as you get better with it, you can kind of do your slide sprint kind of stuff here to make it go faster. And so again, this one, you know, depending on where you're at, it might be easier to just come at it this way and stay straight. But if you're feeling more confident with your movement, you can just do the straight up climb and turn. And then you go into this guy, grab your slap, and there's going to be, as you come into this last stage, or second to last stage, there's going to be a slide gap there. You got to slide through there. Make sure you get the coins. It's very easy to run. It's surprisingly easy to run past them. And then use your slap, which I haven't done yet, to get your sprint. And so from here, you're going to need a flowberry to get across this, and so you want to do a sprint jump. I usually take another flowberry as I'm landing just to conserve time, and then do this again. I'll take another one right here. Make sure you grab that guy, and then you want to jump onto the umbrella so that you land here. And then the next important thing is getting up to this guy. You want to do it from roughly the middle, a little bit before the line. Otherwise, you won't be able, if you get too close, you won't be able to get up there. And then make sure you've got flowberry for this shockwave, and this is going to launch you all the way up here. And you know, usually I end up landing on the big coin, and then I come down. And the tricky part is that you're going to have the flowberry effect, and so you could easily throw yourself over the side, or you know, it can be hard to try to jump onto these guys when you have the flowberry effect, and you see, whoops, and then you can fall off like that, and then you end up having to respawn, or you usually just run out of time at that point. And so we'll go through this one more time. Boom. Sprint jump, flowberry, sprint jump. I'll probably take another flowberry here. Get on the umbrella, get the coin that was here, I got 3 left, so no shortage of Flowberries. Then jump up to this guy, then wall climb up. And then make sure you have Flowberry effect still. And then shockwave yourself all the way up. And then you get those coins, and then you're done.